Hi, my name is Makalu. Welcome to my 8th grade project. I chose to research mapping the human brain. The human brain, a mere 3-pound organ, is the relay center connecting the central nervous system. I will take you on a journey through the ages, first discussing the history, then moving on to all the parts and their many functions, and finally reviewing neuroscience and where it's going in the future. Mapping the human brain is such a vast subject, we've barely scratched the surface. The brain has long mystified humanity. Archaeologists have found decaying fragments of skulls from long ago. When assembled, these fragments appear to vaguely resemble human craniums, with the exception that these brain cavities are abnormally large, leading scientists to further believe we evolved from apes. During the 4th century BC, Aristotle, one of the world's first scientists, thought that while the heart was the seat of intelligence, the brain was the cooling mechanism for the blood. It is also said that Pythagoras, 6th century BC, was the first to consider the brain to be the place where the mind was located. In 1985, a progression of studies on Albert Einstein's brain revealed that, in fact, the two halves of Einstein's brain contained an unusually large amount of glia. Glia, also known as neuroglia, are non-neuronal cells in the central nervous system. Scientists believe that this is why Einstein had such extraordinary brain power. The 3 main parts of the brain can be divided into the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. I will go into more detail about the other 2 subcategories, the frontal lobe and the spinal cord. So the cerebrum, this purple and pink part, does higher functions like interpreting touch, vision, speech, reasoning, learning, and fine control of movements. It is all the folded tissue people often associate when they think of brains. The cerebellum is a small round mass of muscle at the base of your skull. This is a child's brain, so it's a little bit smaller than a child's fist. It is in charge of smoothing movements, balance, and maintaining posture. For instance, if you did not have a cerebellum, you would move your arms and legs like a robot. You would also move your head from side to side in small jerking movements instead of smoothly. You would not be able to walk, run, or do basic everyday movements without falling over. You probably could not stand up straight. Moving on to the brainstem, it performs automatic functions. This little green guy down here. Automatic functions such as breathing, heart rate, body temperature, sleep cycles, sneezing, coughing, digestion, swallowing, blinking, and much more. So your frontal lobe is technically categorized under the cerebrum, but like I said, it's a subcategory, so I will go into more detail about the frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe is located right behind your forehead, so it stretches from temple to temple and hairline to eyebrows. Your frontal lobe doesn't fully develop until you are around 25 years old. It is also where your personality develops. So intoxicating yourself with things like drugs or alcohol can damage this part of your brain, and it can stunt your personality and just your brain growth. So you have to be really careful with those intoxicating drugs and stuff. So your spinal cord delivers signals from your brain to the rest of your body. It's a subcategory, like I said, so it technically isn't part of the brain, so I didn't add it into my artistic piece, as you can see. And if damaged or somehow broken, you may lose the ability to move certain body parts. The brain is in fact only 2% of your body weight, but it consumes 20% of your daily energy. It is like an ever-raging, ever-thinking powerhouse. Its biggest appetites are for oxygen and glucose. Glucose is a kind of sugar found in most foods that you eat on a daily basis. Neurons, or more commonly known as brain cells, are the longest living cells in your body. They are also irreplaceable, so when your parents tell you to wear a helmet, you should probably do that because you can never get those cells back. Male brains tend to be a little bit larger than female brains. This does not technically mean that males are more intelligent than females. It is only because males tend to be bigger in general. The left hemisphere of your brain is better at intellectual functions such as sequencing, linear thinking, mathematics, facts, speech, and logic. A fact that I found really fascinating is that the left hemisphere of your brain controls the right side of your body. So it's this cross communication. I thought that was really interesting, and also vice versa. So the right side of your brain controls the left side of your body. So moving on to the right side of your brain, it is better at imagination, intuition, rhythm, creativity, arts, holistic thinking, and emotions. So things that you can't necessarily learn, but you can develop through skills. Dr. Chirac, a local pediatrician and mother of one of my fellow classmates, observed a rapid increase of neurological disease over the last decade. When she first trained in medicine about 25 years ago, neurological disorder diagnoses such as autism, seizure disorder, multiple sclerosis, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, were very rare. In the last decade, these diagnoses have skyrocketed. In her recent studies, she has come to realize that mental illness is often a physical disease, and therefore it can be curable. When I asked her in the last decade, did you have a patient whose neurological disease especially interests you or intrigued you? She shared with me a case study of one of her patients. It was about a male, 16 years of age, who had presented with a few months of auditory hallucinations, also paranoia and agitation. These auditory hallucinations were instructing him to harm his grandmother. As a result, Dr. Chirac diagnosed him with schizophrenia, which is often an immune-mediated disease. She determined that, in fact, he was having an autoimmune reaction, meaning his immune system was his immune system was triggered to attack his brain, resulting in his symptoms. Through a physical exam, she identified a chronic strep infection. His immune system was trying to attack the strep bacteria, but in fact was targeting his own brain, causing his mental illness type symptoms. She explained to me that when an autoimmune response is triggered, the brain is assaulted. Symptoms can appear such as anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, also depression, and even psychosis. After a few months of therapies, such as antibiotics and frequency-specific microcurrent, FSM, his symptoms started to resolve. FSM is a mild electrical current that increases the production of ATP in your body. ATP is the major source of energy for all cellular reactions in the body. It is in just a few short months, his whole life had turned around with these therapies. He obtained a driver's license, he got a girlfriend, and was enjoying high school. If I had a lab, I would research new attempts to help and, if possible, cure mental illness. Two fascinating subjects that I would research are brain-to-brain transferring of learning and memory, and direct brain-to-brain communication through thought alone. So I thought that was really interesting. These are some blossoming new ideas that have recently come to pass in the medical community and in neuroscience. So it is only a matter of time until we make an amazing breakthrough. There are so many new questions, new information, discovery is happening as we speak. What we know about the brain today is only the tip of the iceberg, so much unknown information just waiting to be discovered. The remarkable organ that is your brain should be recognized, and I enjoyed researching it. From the early studies of the world's greatest thinkers, from the specific parts and what they do, and to what we might be able to achieve in the future, it will be interesting to see where these neuroscience ideas go in the next decade. Understanding the brain allows scientists and doctors to recognize and possibly treat mental illness. I think that if mental illness can be cured, it would greatly improve society. Thank you for listening to my 8th grade project. Are there any questions?